Hello, family. I hope you are feeling blessed and I hope you are doing well. My name is Sage, and welcome to the Sageology podcast. So, this podcast episode is a Sage report for Monday, 28th through Sunday, September 3rd. And in my Sage reports, I just kind of talk about the energy of the week. I go over the weekly horoscope and discuss the astrology that happens for that week. And I also pull an oracle card for each day of the week to kind of talk about some underlying energetic themes or occurrences. And like I said, my name is Sage. I am an astrologer and psychic medium, and I hope you enjoy today's episode and I hope you come back. But if you do enjoy today's episode, please do me one special favor and be sure to follow me on social media and share it with your friends and family. That's really all I ask. But let's get right into it, guys. So before I start getting to the horoscopes, which I am about to do in just a couple of seconds, I do want to say that this week is pretty uneventful. I do think that this week is going to be quite an emotional week because we have a full moon and we're dealing mostly with lunar transits. But besides the lunar transits that we are having this week, the astrology is very little. So I do think that this is a week where maybe not much is happening externally in your life, but it's more so about kind of being in your head and regulating your mind and just taking care of yourself emotionally and paying attention to how you feel emotionally. So let's go ahead and get into it. So at the start of the week, we will have, of course, the Sun in Mercury in Virgo. Mercury is retrograde. We have Venus in Leo. I almost said Venus. Venus in Leo, and Venus is retrograde. We have Jupiter and Uranus in the sign of Taurus. We have Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Pisces. Both are retrograde. The moon will be in Capricorn, as well as Pluto. And Mars, of course, will be in Libra. So let's get into it. So Monday, it's a pretty chill day. Well, that's a lie. I feel like Monday, my old astrology mentor, he always called the outer planets the Krakens, and I feel like Monday is a day that's really filled with the Krakens. So starting off the day, the moon will be in Capricorn. So I do think Monday people will just kind of be like more practical, concerned about like, well, what they have to do in order to be productive, and maybe just kind of like fantasizing or idealizing about kind of being in the end stages of productivity, what their life will look like once they accomplish their goals and things of that nature. And then the moon is going to conjunct Pluto. So when the moon conjuncts Pluto, I think that may turn things up emotionally a little bit. I think people may feel some sort of kind of like intensity or like do or die or now or never. But I do think it's going to be more so of an emotional thing. And it even could be where like people may feel clingy towards you or whatnot, but I don't think it's going to be a situation where will be able to kind of like hold space for others' emotions. I think people will mostly like be in their head, but they still may be like feeling some type of way towards someone else. I don't even know if I make sense. Or it's kind of like think about it like having an intense crush on someone, but your crush doesn't know that you're crushing on them. So it's like you have this intense crush and you just like, oh my God, I have to marry this person or I'm gonna die, and I just love them so much. But it's all internal. So it may like feel tense, it may feel staticky. You may feel like there's something going on. You may feel like people are thinking a certain way about you. This could even be about your boss, like, your job, your workplace, whatever. But it's going to be more so internalized. I don't think people will be really expressing their emotions, how they're feeling and what's going on. So I do think that the energy of Monday could be kind of weird with like those lunar Capricorn transits and the moon conjuncting Pluto. But after the moon conjuncts Pluto is going to go into Aquarius. So once it goes into Aquarius, people are going to kind of like disconnect and maybe take a step back from like their like emotional intensity or whatever. And then just I think that could kind of help people take the situation for what it is and just kind of look at the details for what they are. But maybe some people will not so much just like run away in their head with their fantasies and just live out their projections onto others. But again, like this could also be completely internal. It doesn't necessarily have to deal with other people's situations in your life. It could be you feeling a certain type of way about yourself or what you have going on. And then the moon is going to trine Mars. So I think that's going to have people be more like action oriented or just kind of come up with kind of more production, like solution based ideas and not being so emotional about it and internalizing it. But Mars is still in its detriment in the sign of Libra. So I think they'll kind of help people not be so like selfish and just look at it from their situation. Also kind of take that chance to look at it from other people's perspectives, but I don't think that a lot of the action will maybe follow through, or at least not now. Maybe later we'll see some follow through. And then also the last like astrology piece that I want to mention is that Uranus is stationing retrograde in Taurus today, and Uranus is stationing retrograde at 23 degree Taurus, and Mercury is at 20 degrees of Virgo. So that's a pretty tight trine with a 3-degree orb. And both of these planets are retrograde. So I could just see people like running. I think Monday could be just like a really emotionally turbulent type of day. And I could just see people running away with like these ideas or these like projections or fantasies that they have in their head. But I say like keep that to yourself. And this is a very emotionally heightened week because we are having a water lunation, a water full moon. So rather you have to like kind of like journal about it or whatever. But I don't think this is the time to necessarily talk about it just because the astrology is so crazy. I think lots of like misconceptions could happen. And I just don't think that it will be perceived the right way. And I also don't feel like this is the time where you could kind of really trust your own emotions or trust your own thought process. I do think that this day could be just very filled of like paranoia, almost borderline triggering survival mode for some. So the card we have for Monday is blowing up a storm, strong momentum, sudden change, necessary shakeup, transformation, and hope. So actually, even though this card is blowing up a storm, it kind of makes me consider these transits in a more lighter, more productive way. So who knows? Like maybe the paranoia of Pluto could be used constructively. Or maybe people kind of have, and then again, it's full moon, so it's bringing things to light, right? I'm low-key kind of eating my words. So maybe that like emotional intensity of Monday or that emotional turmoil of Monday could lead you to where you are experiencing discomfort in your life and where you need to experience change. I would again advise that you kind of really do think about it and consider it, or at least just go over it in your head before you kind of just like lash out and act, because with all these retrograde planets, I do feel like there's a missing piece that you don't know. But sometimes, you have to make mistakes and you just gotta figure it out and try as you go and adjust as you go along. So if you feel comfortable doing that as well, do it. If you feel like I can't take this shit no more, like I know something is not right, my intuition has been telling me for a long time that something is not right, that something is not okay, I need to make action, I need to make change, blah blah blah, for my own peace of mind, do it, but understand that there may be some type of backtracking that you have to do. And try to be gentle, understanding, and empathetic with your words, or with your actions, and try not to be so like intense or project anger, or you don't want to do anything in poor taste just because of the possibility of something, just because of the possibility of miscommunication or you misinterpreting the situation. So, that was a lot, y'all. There's Monday. Tuesday, the moon is in Aquarius, of course, and we're going to have it oppose Venus in Leo. Then we're going to have it square Jupiter, and then it's going to make a sextile to Chiron, and then it's going to square that Uranus and Taurus. So for the non-astrologers out there, I feel like Tuesday kind of boils down to what are you settling for versus what you really want, and the work that you're willing to do, the work that you're willing to put in to get it. So with the moon opposing Venus, Venus and Leo being retrograde, I do feel like a lot of people's egos are going to be triggered. So you could feel like just kind of like opposed to your own wants or desires, or feel like you're sacrificing your own wants, your own desires for something, whether it's for like materialistic needs, i.e. like working a job that you don't like or whatever, or for the sake of harmony in your home, you are, being like overly submissive and not like really standing up for yourself, or you're making extra accommodations for people who don't really appreciate you. So I do feel like that could kind of be the energy of Tuesday and kind of what people feel like. But at the same time, think about, your long-term goals. I think it's all about having an action plan. So yeah, you're at the job that you don't like, but you know that you are saving up money for to buy a new car, or to have that spring garden or whatever, or to get a new flat screen TV. So you have to, I think it's going to be an energy where definitely people's insecurities are going to be triggered. That ego is going to get in that way. The ego is going to feel like, I don't deserve this. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, why me? Why do I have to? I'm not dealing with this shit anymore. Right? But Jupiter and Taurus, it's like, okay, you don't want to deal with this shit no more, but understand the consequences of that. Remember this long-term goal. Remember what we set our eyes upon. And, but I think that's kind of up to you. Again, it's like, it's up to you, whatever you want to decide. So, girl, if you feel like you can't take it and you just ready to lash out, fine. But do understand what you may be sacrificing, or kind of like leaving up for granted. And I do think the square with Uranus is kind of like, do I not? Do I play it safe? Do I go on my feelings? Like, do I be impulsive, or do I cater to my ego, or do I like stick to my plan and what I wanted to do? And then if you didn't listen to last week's episode, I really do advise you to listen to last week's episode, because I kind of talked about some of this in last week's episodes too, and I feel like those themes are carrying over. And and I think a lot of this has to deal with Venus's ongoing retrograde in Leo, and Mercury being retrograde, and Jupiter's ongoing transit through the sign of Taurus, which he will be there for a while. So if you're kind of struggling with this week's energy, I definitely would watch last week's episode and kind of like just listen to the precursor. Could maybe like help you sort through some things and kind of come up with your own decision. So the card for Tuesday is how's your mama and them, your people, reach out, strong roots, connection, presence, reunion, foundation. But it came out in the reverse. So this card is leading me to believe that you are not alone. Don't feel like you have to do all of this by yourself. If you are struggling, baby, if you are struggling mentally, there is no reason to handle that shit by yourself. please be sure to reach out to your family. Please be sure to reach out to your community, to your tribe, and just kind of let them know what's going on with you so they could help. Like, if they don't know, they can't help. And if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel like you have to, and then again, you may feel overwhelmed, or you may feel like these sacrifices aren't worth it because you're doing everything by yourself. Sometimes we can't do everything by ourselves. So if you are working extra hours to get that new car that you know that you really need, and you're low-key about to quit because you're like, I can't. Yeah, I know I need the new car, but I can't do this shit. It's too overwhelming. Are you utilizing all your resources? Maybe ask your mom, be like, hey, can you help me with the kids while I pick up these extra hours at work to get the car that I need? Or ask your partner, like, hey, I may need you to take over these chores for a while. I may need you to like cook for a while I do this and try to reach this goal. So I do think that people are kind of it may simply be that you have too much on your plate and that you need to utilize other resources towards your disposal. And then the moon is in Aquarius at this time, and that makes me think about community. So like, what is your community? How is your community helping you? Are you utilizing the full resources of your community? So I do think that there are people who are there to kind of help you that you may need to lean on a little bit. So now we're here on Wednesday, and Wednesday is the big day. Wednesday, this is the day of the Pisces full moon. So let's really get into this full moon. We have a lot that's going on. So first thing that I want to say is that this moon is very Saturnian. Like, although it's a Pisces full moon, it's a Saturnian lunation. The moon is taking place at 7 degrees of Pisces, and Saturn is at 3 degrees of Pisces, and it's retrograde. So if you have been keeping up with me, y'all know what I've been saying about Saturn being retrograde and Pisces. I'm almost discuss it every episode. But I'm going to say this. Like, look at your life and consider what is the long-term goal, right? What's the long-term goal? Kind of think about, your purpose, your legacy, what you want to leave behind on this world. Even if it's not purpose or legacy, whatever, Saturn is going to be in Pisces for the next 3 years. Think about some of your goals for the next 3 years. I think Saturn and Pisces Pisces is so expansive, and it's ruled by Jupiter. So it does have like this higher, like enlightened, some energy that kind of deals with more like philosophical ideas. So you're working hard to provide your basic needs, but what other than your basic needs? Like, what art are you creating? Like, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? What do you want to be known for? Do you want to be the person who's just known for, just being the typical standard human being who lived the typical standard life? But, like, what about, like your hobbies, and just who are you as a person outside of the mundane contributions that you make to society? Yes, everyone has to have a job. Yes, everyone has to have a house, someplace to live. Yes, everyone has to take care of themselves on a basic needs type level. But who are you outside of that? What are your passions? What do you like to do creatively? Who are you in your community? I think that's a big thing. Again, if the apocalypse comes, like, who can you depend on? Do you have people who could vouch for you? Do you have people who could say, good things about you, like your character? What is your character? What's the state of your character? Do you have people who you have relationships that you could depend on, and vice versa? So kind of think about these things, right? Think about the big picture, right? Think about the big picture. Think about the big picture. But what are daily habits, daily structural routines that you are doing? What systems do you have in place in your life that get you closer to the big picture? Pisces, the big picture, overall theme. Virgo, it's the small details. And then again, Mercury is retrograde in Virgo right now, right? So I think it's gonna be like a lot of people just considering kind of like really like thinking over their life and thinking about these subjects, these topics, and like kind of what am I really doing here? I think this is definitely existential crisis type energy, but you need to surrender to that shit. And you need to think about it, because what are you doing here? Are you wasting the life that God gave you, fitting into societal norms and living at the lowest? Think about this, like the lowest frequency of life versus like the highest, dreamiest, like unlimited possibilities, you know? Earlier in the month, at this time, it's still August, but we had the Lionsgate portal. Like, who are you if you didn't put these standards and just these restrictions and these ideas and standards on yourself? Like, who are you? What would you be if someone told you that you didn't have to do this or you didn't have to do that to fit in with the status quo? Like, what would you do? You know, are you gonna pick up that violin and start learning how to play music again? Like, are you gonna get back into those hobbies that you pushed aside because you felt like, you know, you didn't have the time to do it, or other things that you need to focus on? I think there's a lot of like fucked up standards and just unrealistic limitations that we put on ourselves that we don't have to agree to. And I think that kind of robs us of our creativity. And I think this full moon is really inviting people to get back kind of into like their creative essence, their creative nature. Like, we are all divine beings created in the image of God. God put you on this earth to create something. And what are you doing with it? Like, what are you creating? So I do feel like, okay, existential crisis, maybe a little bit. Mercury is retrograde in Virgo. People kind of thinking about these things, thinking about their life. So bigger picture meets smaller details, right? So what's the big picture? What are the small details? Break it down into smaller steps. Saturn, create discipline, structure, or whatever to help you get to those goals. Whether you're like, okay, every other Saturday is going to be a day that I dedicate strictly to some shit that I want to pick up. Rather, I want to learn how to knit. Every other Saturday, I'm dedicating it to knitting. And I say every other Saturday because that may be something that you have. I know, like, on the internet, people are like, you need to be working towards your goals every day. You need to do this every day. And I agree. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I feel like there's definitely things that I do every day in my life that kind of brings me closer to where I am, and to where I want to be. And there's more things that I could implement in my own personal life to bring me where I want to be. But you have to be realistic with yourself and understand where you are in your life too. So maybe if you have to start every other Saturday, you know, that may have to be your starting place. Maybe every day is kind of too overwhelming for you. Maybe it's other shit that you need to figure out or kind of automate. Maybe you need to come up with a better schedule, some more detail to really organize your life to make room for the things that you are pushing aside. So yeah, every other Saturday is going to be a day that I dedicate fully to like bowling or knitting or whatever hobby. Or I'm going to start going to Bible study because I need to like up my spiritual discipline, and I decided that me going to Bible study is going to do that for me. So I think these are some of the things that people should be thinking about this full moon, and that maybe you could kind of implement in your life to coincide and build with these themes that I've been talking about. Okay, so I took a second to kind of look over the transits, and I'm going to bring up some of them and just touch on them a little bit, but I feel like I kind of discussed the energy of that already. with everything that I was saying previously. So again, like during this lunation, Neptune is going to be trine Uranus pretty tightly with a 3-degree orb. And Neptune is kind of like, both of these planets could just be problematic. But again, just like Neptune is kind of like your ideals or your dreams or whatever. And Neptune could sometimes kind of be unrealistic. But Uranus is like that change, but it's also in a sign of Taurus, and Taurus is such a stubborn sign. Like, so again, it's kind of like that reluctance to go with change, or that reluctance to go to embrace the new, embrace the unseen. But on this axis that we're having this lunation, there are 2 retrograde planets. So it's a Pisces full moon. The sun is in Virgo, right? Mercury is retrograde in Virgo. Saturn is retrograde in Virgo. So, and then the full moon is really highlighting this. So with these retrograde planets, is an invitation for reflection and replanning. Like, if some shit that you are doing in your life is not working, if there's something that you need to rethink, now is going to be that time. Now is going to be that time to rethink it. And so I think that these retrogrades are so important. And I think even the timing of all of the retrograde planets that we have, and Mars being in Libra, God is telling us to slow down. God is telling us to reflect, and he's telling us these things for a reason. And I think it's a real invitation to change your life, to change your mindset, to again have that existential crisis, and to do that soul searching, like why are you doing this shit? Like, what are you here for? What is the purpose? What is the meaning behind it? And I think it's really time that people start considering these things, because look at the state that the world is in today. Look at the state that the world is in today. We are in times of unprecedented change, y'all. Please listen to me and internalize the words that I'm saying. So you need to slow your ass down. Some shit is getting ready to pop off. You need to slow your ass down, and you really do need to think about these things, because again, like, what do you have that's meaningful in your life? The society, oh my God, here I go. I hate to sound so woo-woo on this podcast, but I just gotta let it rock and tell y'all how I'm feeling. I gotta let this shit come out how it's coming to me. But the society that we live in is fake as hell. A lot of the shit that we convince ourselves to matter don't matter. So if it's at the end of the day, if you're not pleasing yourself and you're not pleasing God, that shit don't matter. Like, what matters is your community. Like, what matters is the people who love you. What matters is your purpose, okay? If climbing the corporate ladder is not something that you want to do, then don't do that shit. If God has blessed you with a way to like make decent money and be a good, decent person and kind of like satisfy your needs without, being self-sacrificial and selling your soul to fit in with the status quo, or work this like soul-sucking job. You know what I mean? Like, don't. And it's also giving me escape plan. Like, Pisces is the escape plan. Neptune, Uranus and Taurus, breaking away from the status quo, right? Uranus and Taurus. Uranus retrograde in Taurus. How are you going to break away from the status quo? How are you going to break away from the same old every day? Okay? Neptune and Pisces. What do you really fucking want to do with your life? And then again, you may not be in a position to just drop that shit right now. You may not be in a position to kind of like, if you're a grown person with grown person responsibilities, you may not be in a position to just move how you want to do, drop and do everything, right? You may still have like bills you need to pay and that type of shit, but what's your escape plan? What's your escape plan? What are you doing to create an environment, to create habits, to create a community where you could live a more fulfilling life? Do you need some better girlfriends who could help you with your responsibilities and shit so you feel less overwhelmed? Again, do you need to start that women's group? Do you need to start that prayer circle? Do you need to start that garden? Do you need to cut out the people, the superficial fake people in your life? These are things that you need to be considering and think about. And I feel like the full moon is bringing all of this to light, okay? We have Mercury in Virgo, trine Jupiter in Taurus. What's the plan? What's the plan? So, I'm going to get off this full moon. I feel like I said everything that I needed to say during this full moon. I feel like this full moon could be extremely emotionally taxing. I feel like some people may be having existential crisis and some people may need to, but just kind of take it easy and just be introspective and reflective during this full moon. And the thing that God brings to light, really take them seriously. So the card for this full moon is bump on a log, lazing around, loafing, inertia, false start, non-responsive, disinterest. And to me, that's saying, slow your ass down. Slow your ass down. And then sometimes, too, you guys, this is making me thinking of lockdown era. I'm telling you, I feel like that's information I've been channeling, which is why I'm talking how I'm talking. They already did that shit with us once. They about to do that shit with us again. But how is it? It's not going to be the same old. The shit going to be different. But sometimes with all these retrograde planets, with Mars being in his detriment in Libra, sometimes we need to slow down in life. Sometimes we need to slow down so we could pay attention to our emotions and how we're feeling emotionally. I feel like how they feel emotionally is one of the first things that they brush away or that they sweep under the rug, Our emotions are kind of one of the easiest things to ignore, but that's the most potent thing that we need to be paying attention to, our emotional state and how we feel emotionally. That's literally so important. So yeah, again, kind of making me think of what I'm saying, Mercury being retrograde in a sign that is highly dignified in. So it may not be as chaotic as other Mercury retrogrades. There's still a sense of agency there, There's still a sense of power and agency that the planet has. But again, things are slowing down. So it may be some things are in your life are put on autopilot, so you could slow down and pay attention to kind of your emotional state, what you're feeling, the shit that you really need to be thinking about. And some things in your life may start falling the fuck apart. And if they're falling apart, baby, it should have been let go. It should have been dealt with. You don't wait to shit falling off the wheels. You handle it before then. You handle it before the problem becomes that dramatic. So if shit falling off the wheels is probably some shit that you really, really need to pay attention to. So let's get into Thursday, leave Wednesday. So Thursday, the moon is now in Pisces. It's gonna sextile Jupiter. It's going to go opposite Mercury. And then it's going to sextile Uranus again. And I'm not going to talk much about these transits because I feel like all that is just emotionally processing a full moon. Ooh, baby, I love this. I feel like all that is emotionally processing the full moon and kind of just really thinking about that and considering everything that I just spoke about. So Thursday is still a slow day. You're dealing with that process. You're dealing with the shit that's going on. So the card for Thursday is, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Self-love, relaxation, regeneration, safety within, replenishment. I'm going to read that again, okay? Thursday is the day after the full moon. If y'all need to rewind and re-listen to that whole segment, rewind and listen to that whole segment again. This podcast, I'm like speaking off the dome, y'all, and I'm just trying. What people don't understand is that as an astrologer, sometimes, and even like as a psychic, what I'm doing is I'm a translator. So I'm trying to translate energy, vibes, and shit that I pick up on, or even the astrology that I interpret in my head. And I know what it means as an astrologer. And I'm trying to translate kind of like I guess the best way I could put it is the vibe or my feelings, how I feel about things, or the energy that I'm picking up on. And I'm trying to translate that into English words. So that's really not that easy, and it's kind of hard. So sometimes, which is why I love this podcast, because the more that I talk about it, the clearer the story is, the clearer the picture is. So sometimes you may have to go back and listen to it, because the second time you listen to it, it's going to make more sense because the story is already painted, clearly. And I'm doing this shit off the dome, right? Because yeah, let's just continue. I'm not going to explain that anymore. But let me read this card again. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. If you are not taking care of yourself and your emotional needs first, there ain't shit that you could do for nobody. Don't be a fucking martyr. Nobody likes that bitch. You are not Jesus. Self-love, relaxation, regeneration, safety within, replenishment. Self-love, relaxation, regeneration, safety within, replenishment. Self-love, relaxation, regeneration, safety within, replenishment. That should be your fucking affirmation. Like, some of y'all need to be saying that like over and over and over again. I think it's time to really pour into yourself. It's time to get quiet. It's time for self-care so you can figure out how you really feel and what's really going on with you emotionally. Okay, Friday, September 1st. Welcome to September. God and gracefully carried us into the 9th month of the year. Praise God. The moon is going into Aries on this day. But before the moon goes into Aries, the moon is going to conjunct Neptune. It's going to sextile Pluto. It's going to go into Aries, and then it's going to go opposite Libra. So again, those lunar transits, the whole time the moon is in Pisces, it's just going to be triggering the shit that was about to light during a full moon. So it's gonna kind of be like triggering that again, and you're going to start thinking about it again, right? Then the moon is going to go into Aries. It's a fire sign, so we're going to feel like more motivated. Okay, I had my existential crisis. I figure out what I want to do. Like, I want to get back to like healing my inner child, get back into my hobbies, whatever, takes my spiritual practices more seriously, whatever. I'm going to create the like structure, discipline, blah, blah, blah. Okay, figure that shit out. You're going to do that, right? So now it's like action. All right, I'm motivated. Let's go. What do we got to do? Then the moon's going to go opposite Mars and Libra. It's going to feel like a stalemate. I feel like this energy is going to be really frustrating to a lot of people. So yes, you're gonna feel, and then again, this is shit that we really have to think through. So the pieces are gonna start like folding together, coming together, but this is going to be kind of like a long process. Just give yourself time and be patient with yourself to really figure this shit out, because it's not gonna happen overnight. So you're gonna start feeling this like passion. I do think that with the moon being in Aries, people are going to start getting into more selfish energy, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's good to be self-preserving. So they're going to start thinking more about themselves and how they need to care for their own needs. Again, reference the if mama ain't happy, nobody ain't happy card, right? Right. So feeling this fire, baby, like fire and desire, right? And then it's like, fuck, I can't actually do any of this shit right now, or damn, I still need to emotionally process and recover, or maybe this shit isn't gonna come together as soon as I thought. So when the moon opposes Mars, I do think that there's gonna be some sort of conflict there with the follow through and with the action. And that's okay. I think it's, use your brain, use your intellect. I think this is all very thinky stuff. Even with Mercury being so highlighted and Mars kind of being in like an air sign, like I think this is a lot of shit. And even dealing with the water that we have that's highlighted, I feel like this is a really watery week. Like there may be some more like still thinking that you need to do, and maybe you're coming up with your action plan, but it's not something that you could implement quite yet. So keep still working on that plan, but try not to get too frustrated. So the card that we have for Friday is whatever floats your boat, fulfillment, enthusiasm, follow your bliss, and money comes, passion project, do you. But the card came out in reverse. So whenever a card comes out in reverse, I do feel like there's a promise for that card to be direct. But it just take a little bit more time, or there's still some internal work that needs to be done within yourself for it to actually actualize, right? So I do think that fulfillment, enthusiasm, even following your heart. I love these cards because it really just be putting into words the stuff that I was trying to say. Even like with the Pisces full moon, if y'all were really listening to me, what I was actually saying was follow your heart. That's literally what I was saying, baby. Follow your heart. Now is the time to follow your heart, right? So maybe you finally came to yourself. It's like, all right, I'm gonna follow my heart. It's time to follow my heart. Follow your heart. Bliss and money comes, baby. That's the affirmation. But the card came out in reverse, so it's maybe you can't do it yet. So maybe you are still fighting those demons, or them inner voices, or that shit that told you that you can't do this, or that you can't do that, or this is unrealistic, or this will never work out, this will never happen to you. You may still be fighting those demons. You may still be fighting those voices in your head, or it may be external circumstances. Sometimes when you didn't let yourself get so deep into something, or let yourself get so deep into a lifestyle, you just can't switch out without damn near being homeless. So again, maybe you feel like, all right, it's time for me to follow my heart. It's time for me to do my passion project. It's time for me to do whatever floats my boat. And that's crazy that it says whatever floats your boat. And then Pisces is literally the ocean. It's like a water sign. But anyways, you decide you want to do whatever floats your boat, right? That's in integrity. That's in alignment with God's plan. That's still not, again, too, Neptune is very highlighted with all this because Neptune is also in Pisces. And let me just interject this again. So, yes, it is good to be idealistic and optimistic and think about the best case scenario, but you also have to be practical, guys. Like, we still have to eat. I know we all, well, maybe not we all, this is probably just me. Like, I know, like, sometimes you just want to escape and, like, frolic in the woods and, like, read books in a cabin and just, like, talk to the birds and be friends with the deer and have them bring you, like, flowers and shit from out the, like, sometimes we just want to live in this fantasy world. It's like, I don't want to deal with none of this shit anymore. Like, I'm tired of shit, whatever. I just want to kind of fuck off and do whatever I want to do. But again, let Saturn be your anchor. Let Saturn guide you. So yeah, maybe you're not living like that soul sucking unfulfilled life no more, and maybe you are doing what you want to do, but there's still I like to call it human maintenance. There's still human maintenance that needs to be done. Like, bills still exist, unfortunately. There's still bills to be paid, So as for me, like, I want to be an astrologer. Like, this is the shit that I want to do. I just want to read the stars and look at the stars all day and just, like, fantasize and obsess over astrology. And by the grace of God, I am able to do that. Well, not obsess. Obsess is, like, a strong word. I'm going to be obsessing y'all. But, like, I want to study astrology. I want to be an astrologer. I want to read astrology books. I want to, like, look at the stars and interpret them and figure out what they mean. But in order for me to do this and sustain myself off of it, I have to have this podcast. I have to have readings with people. So there is a sort of like sense of balance that you need to do. So what day is Friday? So you decided that you got what you want to do. You feel this motivation. You feel inspired, whatever, right? But you may not be able to implement that plan just yet. There may be some things that you still need to heal, some projections that you still need to take care of, or there may be external circumstances like your mortgage, your car note, whatever, or your family situation where you can't fully implement just yet. But hold on to that plan. Just because now is not the time don't mean that it's not coming. And again, we have a lot of retrograde planets right now. So please be patient. Please be patient with yourself. So Saturday, we have the moon trine Venus, and then it's going to conjunct Chiron. So I love this. I think after dealing with the moon in Aquarius and kind of like all those squares with like Jupiter and all those squares with Venus and even like Jupiter squaring Venus, I feel like Venus just has been having like a lot of opposing energy and just like a lot of square, like just like not non-harmonious conflicting energy. And I love that we have this lovely trine, this fiery trine with the moon on Saturday. So I think that's beautiful. And again, follow your passion. So you may not be able to do the big thing just yet, right? But maybe it's like little shit that you can do, you know? Maybe, again, that's like having the courage and the ability to do the little things. So I do feel like because the moon is also conjuncting Chiron and Venus is retrograde, I think the insecurities are going to start tweaking. People may start feeling like insecure, but just tell those thoughts to shut up. And also, you guys, in this process too, don't allow other people's thoughts or projections to infiltrate your mind and your peace and to get into your head. I feel like that's always important. So you may be insecure about some shit and you may be dealing with that internally, but don't allow other people to speak on that shit, you know? So again, I may be insecure about my stretch marks, right? And that may be something that I'm like dealing with in my head. But if I wear a crop top and my stretch marks are showing, it's me dealing with that insecurity. Saying I'll go deal with that insecurity, right? And so let's say like a auntie or some shit is like, "Ooh, girl, why you show that? That's showing all your stretch marks." Bitch, shut up. I ain't asked you, hoe. Like, it's not you to comment on my fucking stretch marks, so leave me alone. So I think that could be the energy of Saturday, kind of having the courage to kind of like take that leap of faith, do what you want to do. You know, you may not be able to fully convert, but having that courage to take that small step, right? And then dealing with your own insecurities in your head, but now allowing other people to plant more toxic seeds and thoughts in your mind. And sometimes when you let people get away with shit like that or say shit like that, it just eats away at you. It just eat away at your soul. Don't allow that shit to happen, you know? Don't allow that shit to happen. I think a lot of the energy of this week is standing up for yourself as well, you know? So I think sometimes we just, okay, it's not worth the conflict. It's not worth the fight. Sometimes you need to tell people to shut the fuck up. Like, it's really none of your business. Like, if you ain't helping me, if you ain't speaking affirmations to me, if you don't have solutions for me, don't fucking talk to me. If you just want to spread like pessimism and just like toxicity, bitch, we ain't gotta be friends. We ain't gotta talk. Like, ain't none of that shit. So again, like, okay, there's, you know, you want friends who go tell you the truth, right? But there's a difference between like telling you the truth and being practical, pointing out some shit that you really need to know versus being a hating ass bitch. So the hating ass bitches maybe start tweaking on Saturday, but just maybe if you gotta curse somebody out, curse somebody out. The card for Saturday is what? Y'all, I can't make this up, period. Okay, so the card for Saturday is God don't like ugly. And this is what I'm saying. I love these cards, and I will always do this because kind of how I said earlier. So when I'm interpreting these transits, it's just like, it's like translating a language, and I'm trying to come up with what this energy means by using like scenarios or analogies that I come up with my head. And I feel like that's really what these cards are doing. So it's kind of helping me come up with like the language and interpretations of basically what I was saying, right? So the card for Saturday is God don't like ugly. Nastiness, clash, strife, resentment, argument, spite, grudge, revenge. So kind of hostile energy that day. Again, think about it, like all the shit that you've been going through this week is all the shit that other people going through. So I like to believe that the listeners of my podcast, because they listen to me, they are mature, and hopefully I'm giving you guys the tool and the agency to kind of go through these transits and figure out, how to deal with this energy, and give you guys some solutions of things that you need to do to kind of deal with this energy and cope. But for like a bald head hating ass bitch who don't listen to my podcast, she dealing with all this, or he or she may be dealing with all this energy, and they don't know what's going on. Their whole life a mess. All they know is that they in a bad mood. And then Saturday come, all they know is that they in a bad mood. This been a really emotionally intense week. They feel like shit. They don't know why. And then they just kind of want to project that and project their insecurities and project their ugliness and nastiness on you. Curse them out, pray for them, and then go tell them to listen to my podcast. That's all you got to do. But protect your peace, baby. Don't let their low vibrations suck you down. So Sunday, we almost done. The moon is going to enter Taurus. And then Venus is going to station direct. Praise God, hallelujah. Praise God, hallelujah. Praise God, hallelujah. So I like the moon entering Taurus. She's going to be there with Jupiter. And this will be energy that we talk about more next week. But the moon being with Jupiter is kind of going to remind us. And then I feel like I'm going to talk about this more next week. But it's important to pay attention to what the moon is doing those next couple of days while the moon is with Jupiter. Because Jupiter is also getting ready to go retrograde, y'all. So that's going to be a test of faith. Again, whatever Jupiter is doing in your chart is building up long-term stability, is working towards a long-term goal that's going to take months to achieve, to accomplish. And when it goes retrograde, it's going to test your dedication, your discipline to that. And so I feel like now, where we are in time, people should start getting kind of more of a clear picture of the long-term goals and kind of what they want to do and what they need to implement to make that happen. So I think that's going to happen. Oh my God, such a beautiful transit, such a blessing. The moon is exalted in Taurus. It's going to be a great time. And then Venus station direct. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's beautiful energy. So we have Venus in Leo. She's no longer retrograde, so she got all her senses together. So we have Venus being beautiful in Leo, doing Leo things. That's so great for money. I feel like the money is going to start rolling in. So if you have been doing the work with Venus and Leo, if you want to listen to what I said about Venus and Leo, you will have to go back and listen to my previous podcasts. I do feel like they are worth listening to. But basically, if you did the work with Venus in retrograde and Leo, if you did the work dealing with that transit, the blessings are going to start rolling in once Venus goes direct. And then we have the moon in Taurus. So the moon in Taurus is going to be squaring Venus and Leo again, but I think that the energy is going to be more harmonious. So versus like triggering just kind of conflict, it's kind of like, yeah, I see this, but I know what to do now. I have that confidence now. So beautiful, 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 beautiful energy. I love it. Before the moon goes into Taurus, she's going to conjunct the North Node, Rahu. And She's going to square Pluto. So again, at the beginning of the week, we started off with the moon conjuncting Pluto. And at the end of the week, we're closing out with the moon squaring Pluto. So how did you feel then versus how do you feel now? I'll leave that up to you. Hopefully you feel more empowered, right? And hopefully with the moon conjuncting the North Node in Aries, you starting to feel like you have the agency to be selfish and the agency to chase your destiny. The card of Sunday came out in reverse, and it says, "Aren't you precious?" Ooh, we're gonna have to dig deep and see what this means. So the card says, "Aren't you precious? Suffering, fools, disdain, displeasure, contempt, poking around, fun, read between the lines," but it came out in reverse. Actually, I love this. I like that this card came out in reverse because it coming out in reverse means the opposite of suffering, fool, disdain, displeasure. Praise God. It reads like a beautiful story every single time. Every single time it reads like a beautiful story. Let me stop squeaking. But again, kind of what I was talking about towards the middle and the beginning of the podcast, dealing with that full moon, right? Suffering, fools, disdain, displeasure. That's the energy of fitting in the status quo. That's the energy of not following your destiny. That's the energy of not being creative. That's the energy of living in lack. That's the energy of not doing what God put you on this earth to do, right? Okay. A lot of people in that energy this week. Them hating assholes from Saturday, they still in this energy. But this card came out in the reverse, praise God. You are in that energy. Moon conjunct North Node in Aries. You have the agency to step out on faith, to follow your goals, to do what you want to do. You are no longer a suffering fool. You are no longer disdain, contempt, displeasure, you decided that you're not dealing with that shit no more. You decided you are coming up with a plan to go after your greatest good. You are coming up with a plan to pursue your destiny. And this is an affirmation that I pray over every single person who listens to this podcast. I hope that y'all are able to embrace and fully step into these energy, especially when these Aries and Libra eclipses roll around. I hope that y'all are able to embrace this. I hope that this is an affirmation for you. And I hope that this episode of my podcast resonates with you. Before I leave, because of all of the intensity of this week, I do want to do a quick message. So I'm going to pull a couple cards a little bit, but before I pull these cards, I want y'all to take the time, meditate on a question that you have. After listening to this podcast, I want you to meditate on a question that you have. I want you to meditate on a perceived problem that you have, or even meditate on what do you need to hear. What do you need to feel motivated? Just any missing piece. I want you to pause. I want you to think about that, and I really want you to meditate on it. And I'm going to pull a few cards, and I pray that these cards is an answer to your prayer. It gives you some sort of motivation and is an answer to your meditation. So pause this and think about that. Deep breaths. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. So, hold that question in your mind, in your heart, the meditation. Okay, stop lying to yourself. Stop coming up with excuses. If you want to do it, do it. Y'all heard everything that I said this podcast. You heard what I've been pouring into you. If you can't do the big grand thing now, do the small action. But baby, you are playing yourself. You have nothing to waste. You have nothing to sit around fuck the excuses. You know, I feel like at this point you're just making up excuses. So don't rush into it. Don't rush into it. Don't, again, that Pluto energy that I was like warning you about towards the beginning of the podcast, I don't feel like that's the answer. So don't rush into it. Know that you have time. Know that God is on your side. Know that everything is working towards your greater good. But just start thinking about the change that you need to make and implement in your life. Don't be arrogant. Don't burn bridges. I feel like the energy that you are dealing with is also the energy of a lot of people that a lot of people are going through. You know, the frequency, hate to sound woo woo, like that woo woo bitch, but the frequency of the planet is changing, y'all. A lot of people are under spiritual attack. A lot of people are getting sick. A lot of people, unfortunately, I hate to say it, will not thrive in the times that we are coming into because they don't have God on their side. So, yeah, a lot of people are running around with evil ass demonic energy. And, you know, I feel like we need to stop being babies and wake up and look at it for what it is. A lot of people are operating in their lowest energy. People operating in their lowest energy are not going to be nice. They're not going to be kind to you. They're not going to they're not going to understand your divine assignment. They're not going to respect and honor the divinity in you. That don't mean that you have to lower yourself to their frequency. That don't mean that you have to step on their level. Just give them grace and separate yourself from those people. Give them grace. I'm not saying let them disrespect you, because of course I don't agree with that. Curse their ass out if you need to. Don't let them disrespect you, but give them grace and separate yourself. You don't have to subject yourself to that energy. That's not energy that you need to be around, quite frankly, anyway, because that shit is very dangerous. That'll get your ass spent. Lastly, again, just have tact, you guys. I think, and I know this is hard to say because depending on like how your chart and just how your life set up, this energy is heavy, and I think people are going to interpret it in different ways. And I know I could already see people tweaking. I know a lot of people gonna be tweaking because this is a lot of shit to even have an existential crisis and be like, oh my God, my life's a failure. Da 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 da. You know, I feel like a lot of people are gonna be tweaking, but calm yourself. Like, calm yourself. Slow down, and don't act out of impulsiveness and passion and end up just doing things that you regret. So that's been my episode for this week. It's pretty long, but I hope that you guys have found comfort in this. I hope that you send this to a person who needs to hear it. If this is something that you need to re-listen to, please re-listen to it. And yeah, if you would like to book a personal reading with me, visit my website, www.kingsage77.com. I love you guys. I pray blessings and prosperity over your life, and I hope that you have a great week. I love you guys. Thank you for listening to me. All right, bye.